Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, joined once more by Sam for a very special video as we are going to be doing our spoiler discussion on The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 2, Through the Valley, which is now out here in the UK. It aired last night at about 2 a.m. in the middle of WrestleMania, so I did not go on my phone for the rest of WrestleMania because something happened. Something happened that we're going to discuss that everyone's talking about that is everywhere. Trades are spoiling it. The official social media accounts are spoiling it. Everyone knows what's happened now. If you played the second game, you already knew. Before we get into it, Sam, how are you doing today?
Great. It's been a 4-day weekend. It's been tense because of the build-up to this episode. It's been a wild weekend of fictional deaths, which have rocked the world of fandoms. And yeah, this is another one. So 911. If you watch 911, you know what I mean.
I thought about to say Doctor Who. Or if we're about to make a joke about the Pope. I was like, that's a bit raw.
I wasn't even going to mention the Pope, George, but I mean, RIP to the Pope. And the Doctor episode was great. So
we had the Pope, Joel, spoiler alert, and Cody Rhodes' WrestleMania title sequence done in the space of 3 hours.
That and a certain character from 911, which I won't spoil, but yeah, it's been crazy. But now you see that there's already memes, which I saw right before this, where it's like a picture of like the heavenly gates, and you have the Pope in the middle, and then you have the character from 911 on one side, and you have Pedro Pascal as Joel on the other.
I've seen this meme. Like, okay,
okay,
that's who the third guy is. Because I was like, who the hell was this other person? But yeah, we're just casually getting deep into spoilers. It's fine. Sorry for those fans of 911 or really.
Well, I didn't say the name. I did not say the name. So
yeah, but yeah, it's been wild, and we kind of thought this was going to happen this week. We spoke about it last week. Friends of the channel, Ren, who was with us earlier on the WrestleMania video, he said to me he didn't think it would happen until episode 3 or 4. A few people thought maybe episode 3 at the start, but after last week, I think we placed our bets pretty well. We both thought, okay, it'll probably be next week. It'll probably be episode 2. Makes the most sense to be episode 2. And it was, but we aren't just talking about the final scene. We're going to be talking about the episode in full. And as always, for anyone that's watching live, if you're watching later on, please do comment your thoughts on The Last of Us. Obviously, we are doing spoiler discussions week to week on the show. We are 2 episodes into season 2. There are 7 total. There will be a third season, and we'll be covering all of those as we are obviously getting into the second game. If you're a fan of this channel, if you like what we're doing, it's been very busy. We never, ever do this normally. We've just done 2 live streams back to back. We've done WrestleMania, we've done The Last of Us. We're not moving out of them. Andor returns tomorrow night for you Americans, Wednesday morning for us in the UK. It's getting really busy. We've got new releases. We've seen Sinners. There's other things coming out. Revenge of the Sith is back in cinemas this week. It's wild. It doesn't feel like the week it is, but it is. So there's a lot of things happening. So do stick around if you enjoy this sort of stuff. If you want to find out about videos we're working on, things we're doing, you can get us on social medias, linktree.com/cinemasavvy. I get through to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and Blue Sky. But Sam, heading over to you. Very quickly for people at home, what were your thoughts on episode 1 last week?
Strong start. I guess I think I said last week that in the grand scheme of things, if you're going to rank all the episodes that I've heard of The Last of Us so far, this will probably be in the lower half, like of episode 1. I think it's got to reestablish things. It needs to introduce us to 5 years later, new characters. So there's a lot of kind of work that it's got to do, and it does it really well. It doesn't mean that it's the most high octane, most entertaining, but it has some really, excellent moments and scenes that stand out. I think we both agreed on was the therapy scene between Pedro Pascal and Catherine O'Hara, and some great performances there. And yeah, I think we were both okay, this has kind of set it up. Next week is going to be a little bit more intense, and it proved to be definitely more intense.
Absolutely. And it was one of those where we, as you said, it was a bit slower. Episode 1 was very much, I don't want to say setting up episode 2, but it was, you had to reestablish there's been a 5-year time passing. We've got an introduction to a character who wants to kill Joel. We had to sort of catch up, see what's happened, see what's happening, plant the seeds of what's going to happen in this season. And I think last week did that very well. Very well to the point is, obviously, we're going to be talking about the golf clubs later on, but this episode is almost split in 2 with regard to story. That we had like the Battle of Jackson, the Siege of Jackson, as you call it, which we were saying last week. I was like, oh, that could be like a nice story thread for the next few weeks to get to the finale. The fact it happened today, concurrent, probably, I don't want to be the or in the game type guy. Probably the biggest new thing they've added that wasn't in the games, which is really cool. That's not a criticism, but this felt like the first time, like, oh, the writers are really stuck in. Like, we didn't see anything like this at all. This isn't a plot point taken from elsewhere brought back into this. This is we're doing this at the same time. And you spoke really well last week about the Infected, and this is kind of what I thought, that the Infected, they sort of dipped in that season one. You'd get one episode with all of them, then episode on humans, and they were sporadically, whereas 2 episodes in, I feel like they're bringing them back alongside the human drama for the first time, that we're seeing this, hey, yes, there are terrible people in this world, but there are these infected fungi, which are awful, and we need to approach and deal with both of them, which I think, if we're going off the first 2 episodes, is a really good thing moving forward for the series. It wasn't like an issue in season 1, but when it's pointed out, it's noticeable. And I think through character actions, it's probably been the best way in season 2. I know that's a really random side point that's extend off saying it's an intro, but does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. And I think it'll be interesting to kind of watch these first 2 episodes back to back as like kind of one, extended episode. And I think, when I've recommended the first seasons to friends, I've kind of said, oh yeah, watch the first 2 episodes back to back. They're a nice kind of duo to have before episode 3, which really kind of shifts things. And at least with what the next episode looks like, obviously it's going to be the reactions to what's happened over kind of these last couple of days. So
yeah, it's a good point you mentioned that, and as I said, the same with season 1, that there were double headers. Do you know what it reminds me of? I don't know if I said this to you before. I probably have. Like those Russell T Davies early Doctor Who seasons when there'd be like 13, but you'd get like 3 of those 13 with 2 episode story arcs. So you'd get like a random double episode every few weeks, and it was always really fun and really cool.
Yeah,
it feels a bit like that in a complimentary way.
Yeah, no, I think so. Because as anyone who's watched some of the Doctor Who episodes on things that we've done on this channel, like I've said about my love for like classic Who, and a lot of the strengths of classic Who are the cliffhangers, because they would have 4-part episodes or 6-part episodes, or very different episode lengths and stuff. So it's great to be able to go from week to week and go, oh my god, what's going to happen directly after this, or how are they going to get out of this one? So it's nice that was brought through into kind of modern Who. But I like when that's done in these types of TV shows, where the actual time within the episodes itself can fluctuate. So you can be going over 2 episodes and span 24 to 48 hours, and then you can cut to the next episode and it could be a month later or something. And as long as it's got a strong story, good narrative, you'll be able to follow that, and it'll make sense as to why production have gone and done that. So I think it's we've said that this about other TV shows such as Andor, where they've switched kind of the lengths of time over certain things. And I think it can be really effective.
Definitely, and kind of really getting into the meat of this one. If we kickstart, I know obviously there's 2 massive story points which are going to cover most of the conversation, but we're obviously going to get up to those. We'll start with how the episode began, with almost like a dream sequence or like a flashback, which is Abby in the hospital. We can finally say this, discovering the fact that she's replaying the image in her head of finding her dad's dead body, and she's got this person telling her not to go in. His brain's everywhere, and it's her of the future, essentially. A really great opening sequence. So I watched this show with my dad. He's never played the games. He's not a gamer. He wouldn't care. He's a big fan of Pedro Pascal, and we'll talk about that later. I love this sequence because, like the funeral sort of thing last week, it's like these. Obviously, we spend a lot of time with Abby in the game, but it's nice to get these subtle moments, which does a lot of character development. But it's like a minute or 2 of your time, if that. And it's really playing up the question, like, what happened last week? And my dad basically turned to him and was like, oh, I'm curious to see how this plays out. He was like, I wonder if Joel killed someone or something. Obviously, we know he did, but it's crazy because we obviously know who, why, when. Whereas the general audience, who is still the most people watching the show, are the ones who don't know. A lot of people have played that first game, might not have played the second game. They might have bitched the first game, not the second. We know how popular the games are, but games don't translate into general audience for TV shows. They don't translate into films. Obviously, they can turn up and they contribute, which we know like audiences do. But I will be totally honest, and this is a sort of a statement for this. Most people watching the show aren't fans of the game. I'm not saying they're not fans of the game, but the HBO audiences, the Sunday night prestige drama slot, that isn't necessarily gamers. It's a game many people have heard of if they hadn't before the first season came out. But at this point in time, you know, and this then turns into spoiler etiquette. So sorry, I'm going to go off tangent, but people who are like gleefully doing spoilers online, certain individuals who, you know, they haven't played the games, but they know about the golf clubs and they're tweeting the golf clubs making jokes weeks and weeks ago, by the way. One individual case is somebody where they haven't watched the series or the game, but they just started tweeting about the golf clubs in the last couple of weeks. And I'm just sort of sat there like, okay, you know what happens. And that's your knowledge that you have, that you've obviously found out somewhere because you've not played it, you've not seen it. But that shouldn't mean you do that to other people. Like, just because it was a game 5 years ago doesn't give you the right to assume everyone has to know. Like, look at adaptations like HBO. Game of Thrones is a great comparison. HBO series, the book crowd, or in the books this, in the books that. Once that show overtook them, okay, we know it didn't end as well as it should have. The core story is there. Like, George R. R. Martin told them character endings, but obviously it wasn't written well. They were suddenly in the lurch, but they were always like, yeah, the Red Wing's not a spoiler because it was published like years ago. I'm like, but it's still a spoiler for people that haven't read them. Like, I tend to push myself towards finding out things, but it isn't this like, hey, we can talk about it because you all know. Like, if it's clearly on and there's clearly people watching it who don't know it, it's a bit different. And we know that social media is like a treacherous place, but certain individuals that within certain, I'm not even saying fans, maybe they work within the industry, I just find it a bit like deranged. Like, why would you want to ruin that for other people? So.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really, it's very dependent on like context and time and whatnot. I don't mind people sharing information. I think ultimately with social media, there is information there. You could go onto the internet, there's information, and sometimes you are going to find things that you're not necessarily looking for. And you know, my thing always is that if you are so excited for something or you can't watch something immediately, don't then go on to a main hub where people are going to be talking about it. Try mute that. You can mute things if you think that's going to work, but just don't then complain, because people are really excited about it. And for some people who may not necessarily have the option of speaking with people in person about it, or being able to watch with other people, being able to share that and actually, you know, share this positive experience or just this experience in general with others online can be a really lovely thing. So I think sometimes, not always, because there are people out there who just love to spoil things, but there are times where people are going to talk about it and it's going to be in a not trying to spoil things way. So I think it is very dependent on the context, and I would just advise people anyway for future, if this got ruined for them, obviously it's from a game that came out years ago. It's not like this was just for the TV show. Obviously elements have changed, but there's a lot of people who were really excited about this. So if you accidentally saw something, then that's a shame. At the same time, you just can't really get away from something like that. Once something's out there, it's out there. You know, so I think that's kind of what I have to say about it.
Yeah, and I've kind of had like the official HBO page, 2:59 a.m. So that's like, as it's finished, tweeted Ellie's like looking at the body. And I'm sat there like, okay, I get it. I get you got a social media staff, but like, what if there's someone who has a HBO subscription that can't watch it till like 2 hours time? Like, to put it on the official socials. And I know it's a different conversation. It's more like etiquette again, but all these, you know, I think Star Wars, I can't remember if it was Andor or if it was something else. I think Star Wars would not reference anything to do with The Mandalorian. That was it. They wouldn't ever reference it for like 5 days after it aired, because on the Monday they'd then update the thumbnails. They'd then do their articles. Yeah, HBO is like, yeah, come on in, guys. This happened 3 seconds ago. Like, it's not live sport. It's television, and that's what always frustrates me. I know again it's off topic. It's not this, but for this episode,
Yeah.
it feels like the first time since Game of Thrones where there's been one of them shows like I have to disappear from the internet. It's going to happen with Andor this week, and I'm dreading waking up on Wednesday. My alarm will go off at like 7:45 p.m. and I will go on Twitter on autopilot, and someone's going to put the clip out from the final scene of that final arc or something, and I'm going to have to be so careful on these upcoming Wednesdays. Which it's annoying, but it's just mentalities are different, isn't it? And that's way off point of the episode, though.
No, but I feel like at least with official accounts, I think 24 hours at least would be kind of at least enough time to be like, okay, until they reveal something, at least if it's something like a live thing, because we see this in more regional programs. So like soaps, for example, I still see like things from them where as it's actually airing, it gets released earlier on streaming, but it will air on TV at a certain time, and then they'll do images and stuff to back that. And I feel like on a show that isn't really going to be having a massive international audience, I think that's fine. But with a show like this, maybe make the actual post, if you are going to post throughout it, just a little bit less open, I guess. I think, especially when it comes to like the massive moments, you could be like, what just happened? And a GIF of something rather than an actual screenshot from there. But like, it's a very fine line, and yeah.
Agreed. That being said, let's get into it. I went on the tangents there. Let's talk Ellie. So, opening this episode, Ellie is going out on patrol with Jesse, and we know that Joel has gone out with Dina. And I'm not going to sit here and go through game changes, but we spoke before about live. I've not replayed the game since it came out, so there are obviously a lot of things I remember from that second game. Given the length of it, given I've not replayed it, I don't have that like encompassing knowledge that I do on the first. I did sit there thinking, okay, I think it's a little bit different. I don't remember Dina with Joel, and I was just sat there like, I've not got a problem with that. I'm curious, like, because we spoke last week about Dina saying, Isabella said she's been amazing so far. She's got great chemistry with Pedro Pascal. She's been great with Ellie. Like, I'm curious to know how this is. And I'd sort of said, not that they'd be watching the people that really hate that second game that like made that ruin their life. And Neil Druckmann's like destroyed everything they ever had because of one character on a game. This is where the TV writers come in, where you have your storytellers who have written shows such as Chernobyl. There's your mic drop. Don't if they're looking at this game thinking, okay, how do we adapt this into a 7-episode series? Not the whole game, obviously the first half. We are going to make changes. We have to. It functionally cannot work the same way they did changes in season 1. And this one, everything feels character driven, and I know we'll sort of find out a lot more next week when we see, what happened, the aftermath of today's episodes. But putting certain characters, even Joel and Dina last week, they get like a little sequence together when he's at the house teaching how to do the spraying. There's a long way in doing the writing such as this, and I think some people are hesitant to jump, but I really enjoyed the pairings, and that also then leads into the second big subplot, which is they keep Tommy back at Jackson. Because he's kind of in charge, but his wife's in charge. But he's like not the general, but obviously there's like a council, isn't there? And he's clearly like let's say politely, the military role. Like he's been with Fireflies, he's been around with others. He knows exactly how to protect them. So when we're getting this insane action sequence, it makes logistical sense to have a character that's a Tommy who we know from season 1, who we knew from the opening scenes of episode 1, season 1. It makes sense to have him back. And then we can put the others on this different journey because we know that Jesse's going to have an important role in the series. We know that Dina is. We know that Ellie is. And Tommy is going to have an important one. But the show has built up Jackson better. And I think this is the episode where we're starting to see, again, the writer's room, the Craig Mazins coming in saying, okay, these are the changes I want to make. Like they did in season 1. But I'm just curious. I mean, the reason I elongate that, I'm not making an essay the fact that they just swap a few characters around for a journey sequence, but where the note I actually wrote was Ellie wants to be with Joel. And that was the big thing for me because you go back to what happened at the last episodes and she just wants to be with Joel. It's kind of like, I think at that point I knew that they're going to kill him today. When Joel's already gone out, he's going to have dinner at 8 o'clock. So I wanted to go with him today. I'm sat like, oh, yeah. Tough luck, Buster. Your thoughts on all those? Sorry, I'm gonna keep elongating. It's because I'm tired.
No, it's good. I think I feel like we'll see I guess the repercussions of these changes over the next few episodes. But I think with this specifically, I kind of agree, and I think the changes were good ones to make. I think we got quite a good chunk of Ellie and Dina development in the last episode, and I think there's a lot of people, and I've seen it already, where I think some people are upset about Ellie and Dina not having their relationship develop further in this episode. Obviously, we can refer to the game a little bit more about basically Ellie and Jesse come across Eugene's weed stuff in the 7-Eleven, and initially that's found by Ellie and Dina in a basement under a library, and it causes, I think, some quite fun, kind of lovely, slightly awkward scenes between the pair. But I think it really helps to build the relationship. But I think, and I've always got to think about this when watching this show, you go from a game where you can kind of spend a lot more time with these characters and spend hours and hours in certain sections and areas before moving forwards. And we have a limited runtime here. And I think with the setup of losing Joel, I think it would have been a bit too jarring to have this kind of really lovely Ellie and Dina stuff, which I can imagine a lot of what was in the game there could transfer to post Joel death. However, we don't know that. I do think it's a bit of a loss, but I think it enables us to kind of have the knowledge that we already learned about last time, that Joel and Dina do also have a friendship relationship, and we may find out from Dina moving forwards about what her and Joel were talking about. It allows Jesse to have a bit more of a role, because I think Jesse in the game didn't have as much to him as I would have liked, especially in the beginning. So it's nice to see his relationship with Ellie. And you're absolutely right. It gives Tommy a chance to actually hang back. It gives us someone that him and Maria it's like some people that we care about back in Jackson in this completely new plot point, completely original to the TV show. So in terms of the split, I really like it, and I think it just does add that dread, because we see Ellie in the last episode go past Joel's. We don't see that scene. I'm certain we're going to get that scene in a future episode. But yeah, I think something that I also wanted to add as well is that we in the game are very used to kind of seeing flashbacks and people imagining things and whatnot, whereas we don't really have the luxury of getting loads of that here. So I think things like Abby having that initial dream where she didn't have that so early in the game, I think it helps the general audiences who haven't played the game to actually get a good sense of things. Again, the amount of time that we spend with these characters initially in the game means that we have an idea of who they are, and then it completely switches after playing more and more and more. But we don't, again, the luxury of time, we don't have that here. So I think some things do need to be spelled out a bit more. Which means that we can't really have some of these really nice long scenes between certain characters and have those here. But hopefully, it means for long term for the rest of the season and hopefully season 3, and it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, really well said about the flashbacks, and even that first season showed they're willing to do it. Even I guess you could say the Bill episode is in its entirety it's set before the events of the show, the concurrent timeline, and even that then has differing flashbacks, and then you're bringing in other actors reading the letters out loud when they're not there. And it's not to say Pedro Pascal won't appear again in this series. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a way to bring him in via a flashback, as you said. Like, there is story to be unearthed. It's being set across 2 seasons. If we think about it, with 2 episodes in, we know we're going to get to it's going to become the story of revenge. I don't think we're going to get how the game was almost a chapter at a time. I almost just did the spoiler, I didn't mean to, but I'm curious that I think they're going to restructure a lot of that second game, but I think it's going to be for the beneficiary. Like we got a bit more about the Fireflies not existing anymore and the WLF, which is on the bag that Dina saw. And I like what it said about Dina that, yeah, we lose bits of them from the game. But when I caught Dina in that room and she's noticing these logos, I'm like, Dina's taking Tommy's role as being the one who witnessed it. And that's actually going to have more of an impact on Ellie because that's Ellie's partner to be, I guess, at this point in time, who she's fallen for. They've fallen for each other. And she's going to be helping her on a mission. And where I'm kind of leaning with that, is without speculating too far, is I think there will be a moment to continue building their relationship up to an impasse this season. It's really tricky talking about that second game off the back of memory, let alone not doing spoilers. But it all comes down to, again, these writers setting things up in different means because they are structuring it for a 7-episode series to be 7 hours in length, not, a 20, 30-hour game, which I'm pretty sure the second one was. And kind of a key part of all of this is Abby. Also, when we got the lodge, I'm just going to say it now, there are certain things in Last of Us which you get excited about, right? Where it's like, oh my God, that's from the game. I remember it in the tunnels in season 1 when you've got like Ish and all of them. For some reason, the large windows in the ski lodge had me really excited. I don't know why. Like, obviously, we know the sequence that's going to happen, but there's just something about, okay, I've never been to a ski lodge. I don't know if they've all got long windows, but I was just sat there like, oh my God, it's I know where we are. Like, it was a lot of fun. But I like the fact that, again, because the series has developed the Jackson already as a town, that then is putting fear onto Abby's group, where they're doubting her from the first minute. And I'm like, oh, like we could all die. Like, look at how we're going to get in. Look at this entrance. We don't even know who we're looking for. They've built a city here. We are a group of people. I like that jeopardy. I really like how they were introducing them to the point that you don't know any of these characters, but you're getting personalities within Abby's group. You're getting the nervous one who doesn't want to do anything. You've got, obviously, they don't know at this point in time. You've got a potential partner for her. You've got an aggressive character in there as well. We've got the bold one, I'm going to call her, because that then makes me think to all the other stuff we're going to get in Last of Us. Probably season 3, we're going to get into cult territory. That's a very early prediction. That's the loosest I'll say that. But there's some really interesting stuff that's going to happen. And I've really liked the sequences with Abby and even how it all came to be. She falls down the side of the cliff because it's her desperation to find Joel when she knows it's not working, to come across that pile of infected. And we've heard earlier in the episode that the infected, not they're smarter, but they're like hiding under the dead bodies now of other infected. Like, it's like they're hibernating for winter. And I like they're adding this sort of, not intelligence as such, but it's that cordyceps hybrid brain mentality, isn't it? That they're working on something. And Abby almost activating that for the sequence of events. A phenomenal sequence with the fence, I thought was shot really well. That's probably actually really difficult to shoot people when I think it, but we know Abby's been introduced as a villain, whereas in the game she's not. She's introduced as, here's this character I'm playing as. And in this, it's you sort of kind of want to get out, and it's got the perfect build-up for her meeting Joel, that she doesn't even find out it's him in a dramatic way. It is just Dina calling his name. And then we have something, I don't know if you picked up on it, the group thinks Dina is, well, Ellie. Like, because they knew Joel was with someone younger, and Dean has been gobby and mouthy. And the way I read the whole thing was they think that's Joel and Ellie together on those horses that she does, even though it's not, it kind of is. But I've really enjoyed the sequences of Abby leading up to getting to the lodge. I sort of wondered your thoughts, like, because Caitlin Dever, as an actress goes, she's been in some really good stuff. She's still very young. There's a lot of abuse aimed her way. I'm sighing because there's been more abuse aimed at her way, more abuse aimed at Ramsey in the last week as well. The usual nonsense we're seeing online. We knew that season 2 would open the door for stuff like this, but I sort of find it outrageous that it's like everyone that cried for 5 years about the game watched the first season and then have like reverted back and just started crying about the second game still, even though it's now a second series. Like, it's just strange. And I won't get into it too deeply like last week, but it's just the social media mentality is just embarrassing. Like, oh, Caitlin Dever doesn't look like Abby. Didn't you all spend 5 years saying that no one looks like Abby? Like,
Yeah, I mean, we all know. Well, I say we all know. I don't know how many people know, but you think logically, you think clearly. It's a TV show. It was a video game. Things. It's all fictional. Um, we all can get a bit too invested in things, but not to the lengths that it ends up being attacks and kind of really horrible abuse of characters and actual real life people, actors, voice actors, like everyone. Um, I think even when like people abuse characters so much, I'm like, okay, at the end of the day, like let's not go too far unless they're pure evil, in which none. It's very few characters in the show have been pure evil. Um, but I mean, aside from I guess the cannibals of last season, but everyone has got a cause who isn't infected. Everyone has got a reason for something, and even though like people may not agree with Abby's reasoning or may think they don't care because they don't like her anyway, like you've got to just understand that's part of the story and that's how this is going to continue. And I think it's she's been played really well. I think Bella Ramsey has always been great in this role, and they continue to be great in this role. Caitlin has been fantastic so far. Really impressive stuff this episode. Um, I think seeing her performance compared to the people around her in her group is really interesting. We kind of get those different perspectives and faces in the game. We kind of see that some people are a bit less, wanting to do this. A lot but they've all followed Abby because it's all about being together. Supporting her and supporting the Fireflies, that team that they had back in Salt Lake City, and that does come through here. So it's nice to kind of get that, and I'm sure we'll see more. I think this is when the kind of the timeline and the way that these next two seasons are going to be shown to us will really highlight the differences between this and the game, because there's I feel I really want to talk about the way the game goes,
I
but
know.
I think it will allow for some of these characters to shine a bit more, and actually get a three-dimensional view of them before the events of what happen, which I think will just allow the audiences to understand a bit more. And I think the whole thing is for understanding. This is what I kind of feel from this. It's all about understanding and how by not looking at the full picture can cause massive issues and ramifications for down the line if by just going down one viewpoint. Um, and we see this chain of events: Joel killing Abby's dad, Abby now killing Joel, which has been witnessed by Ellie, and what that can potentially do. But we'll talk a bit more about that later anyway. But yeah, Abby being so headstrong and just spending 5 years wanting to get revenge and almost, potentially thinking, oh, well, it may not happen. There's so many people down there. And then somewhat by chance, spotting, one of the patrols. It very well probably was Dina and Joel. And then almost beat for beat having a sequence of events that is replicated from the game, especially with the fence, is such a highlight from those early moments of the game, and to kind of see that pan out. And then immediately before anything, you hear Joel's voice and you see his hand with the watch, and it's just like, oh no, they've met. I mean, a stroke of luck for Abby. And I think to have that more natural Dina shouting Joel's name rather than Joel introducing himself, I know that's what him and Tommy do in the game, so it feels a bit more natural to have that. And yeah, to go back to that lodge, which is the fact that certain sets from The Last of Us TV show are created in such a way to reflect what happens in the game. It's like, okay, we know what's going to happen. We know what this setting is, and it becomes really exciting. But again, filled up with so much dread. But yeah, that whole sequence with the infected. and how that links back to Jackson and this plot point, this setup that we had in the last episode. I think it's a really interesting thing that that happened.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought the bit as well about the supporting characters, like, because so careful, isn't it? Like talking about the game, they don't get developed in the game. I'm going to say that the characters around Abby, a handful get developed, but not enough. And I think the show, like Bill, like Sam and Henry, like Tess, has evidenced developing supporting characters. And I think this will carry through into the second and into the third season. And I think this will do the show the world of good. It will do the characters the world of good. The actors in those roles will get more work, not more work, but they'll get more material to deal with to build their performances and elaborate them further, which will overall enhance this as a show. And this is the difference of TV and film. Sorry, TV and games. I'm not saying games as a channel, but with games, it's your core protagonists, it's your core characters. You don't even need to know what you need to know because that's all that's designed. Yet, even though it's similar but different when you're writing series, when you're writing films, there needs to be development on other people. If you're a supporting character in a 7-hour series, you need to have something else. Whereas a game, it's understandable if you're more of a, not a MacGuffin, but you're expendable, like, because it's a game, it's different. And I'd go so far to say, like, let's take an established character like Tommy. He doesn't get an awful lot to do in the game. I'm sorry, I'm just going to say it. I really like, as Gabriel Luna plays him in the series, I really like what they're doing with him. They're developing him more, and the segue off the Abby sequence is, whilst they are digging up the pipeline back in Jackson, they finally find, less dramatic than I thought, but more impactful, normal person just sees it, calls it in, shits. But it's the cordyceps seeing the human, where it's like, oh, they're all here, or there's one here. And that image of the hundreds and hundreds of infected just turning away to run somewhere else. I'm not going to slag off Game of Thrones intentionally, but this is the sort of thing that Game of Thrones missed out with White Walkers towards the end. When they went to that final destination, it became, they never felt like a threat, and they always should have been. And the one thing The Last of Us has done right from day one is the infected have remained the biggest threat, more so than the humans. Even jumping to today's episode, when they're clearing up the town and there's a guy who's got like a bite on his arm and he gives the gun to the person that's found him to call it a day, that's impactful, and we don't know who that is. We're never going to see him again. It was just a pan where that happens in the foreground. These moments really work, and because it was this new double jeopardy of, oh, this didn't happen in the game, this sequence, what's happening in Jackson? Oh, Tommy's not with Joel, what's going to happen here? Suddenly it's like, oh, could they die? Like, everyone is potentially at risk here. And I've just got to talk about the action set piece. I thought, I'm seeing conversation of this being regards one of the best TV episodes of all time. Appreciate it's less than 24 hours since it's aired. I can immediately put this in the conversation. I can immediately say that this is the conversation for best TV episode I've seen. This is better than anything in season 1 today. And that's not disrespecting season 1. Season 1's incredible. This is like the gulf of, you're already a great show. How did you get to the next level? That's an episode today. Having the Jackson City go up in defense, the ingenuity with the barrels, burn them, try and stop them, because ammo is limited, weapons limited, putting the kids in the caves below. It was such a great action set piece that I don't think anyone saw coming in episode 2, because we've all been focused on what's going to happen to Joel. When's it going to happen to Joel? What's happening here with this character? No one thought the infected could get through. It's like Helm's Deep through the town today. And I thought it was so well directed. And I think it's Mark Mild who directed this. He is a HBO, he's been involved with Game of Thrones. He's been involved with The Last of Us. I believe he is one of the showrunners for the Harry Potter series. And that's a different conversation. Or he's been announced to direct multiple episodes. That is a HBO person going through different HBO productions who is clearly delivering results. and the competency of the directing, say that you could see the action, you could follow the action. With the infected breakthrough, you get a sequence of the bloater, which we got a cool little scene in season 1 when that one came out, ripped someone's head off. But that was it. But we got to see it as a threat today. We got to see, could Tommy's wife die? And I believed it. I believed at times. I was like, there's no way these two are going to come out of this. We finally got to see the flamethrower, which I absolutely loved. It was such a great action sequence. To have that interweaving with the tension of what's going on with Joel and Abby, what's going on with Ellie, sorry. I'm all over those names, obviously played by Bella Ramsey. What were your thoughts on the Jackson stuff? I feel like I'm zigzagging, but it's just such a great episode. It's hard to sort of digest it down into one.
I was a little bit surprised that it happened, but I think after seeing the episode and kind of digesting it, I think it's a really interesting plot point to add, to have one, a battle set there, and to have it be during this episode. I think we hear about Jackson having holding off infected and stuff in the game, but have never actually seen that happen. And Jackson, it was still together. So I think to know that this was happening when the cordyceps were found and the infected moved, I was like, oh no, is Jackson actually going to fall? I think it was actually a really smart idea, because if you think that this is going to be the big thing of the episode, then it's going to blindside you a bit more. I think for any non-game players, for people who don't know anything, one, they're not going to believe that Pedro Pascal is going to be killed off in the second episode of the second season. And two, at least it wouldn't happen in an episode where there's such a threat to kind of the main base, the main location. So I think it was a really good idea to actually have Tommy there. I think, again, is a great reason as to why Jesse is out there and not Tommy. To actually have him hold the fort with Maria and everyone else, seeing those defenses go up. Actually, we don't see a lot of big battles like this from a TV show in the daytime. A lot of things are at night. Yeah. There's only a handful of massive Game of Thrones battles that happens in the day. So to kind of get that so early in a show's lifespan, I think is really impressive. I think it just showcases, that Jackson is a community that's been built up prior to when we first visited in season 1, and that it's only grown since then. So it makes sense that all these people are prepared for attacks, that they have these kind of unique defenses in some ways, and have these preparations. So I was worried, when you see kind of the young and the vulnerable being locked in basements and stuff, you do get that fear of, oh no, if it's going to fall, we're going to see this happen, it's going to be really just terrible. But I'm really glad that we saw so much action and so much resilience from these people, and the fact they actually managed to hold their fort, although losing people, to actually see the different ways, blockading areas, having flamethrowers, really putting the work into, and it gives Gabriel Luna just a bit more to do, and showcases his prowess. So I'm really happy that we got that, and to have that side by side with this kind of a bit more slow burner with the final sequence of events. It's it was really entertaining. I think a great job everyone involved, and it really did just emphasize once again that the infected are the main threat of this entire world, this show, even though there's other threats, that, as we've already spoken about, and that Abby is absolutely one of them.
Yeah, absolutely that. And kind of into line with that, let's talk Abby a little bit more, shall we? So we've had Jackson. Let's just talk. I mean, we spoke about it a lot already, but we haven't really got into it. The Joel's death today. It finally happened. Episode 2. Probably one of the most controversial decisions in modern video games, can we say? Controversial being audience reception. One of the ballsiest games I still think I've made. I think we spoke about this last time, that I guess I'm going to say this, like, again, if you're watching the game, you're going to be bored that we keep skirting around it. But if you haven't, this is why we're looking out for you. One of the great things the game does is you play as the character of Abby, and you get to find out about her history. Like, the series opened of us knowing Abby wants to kill Joel. We didn't know that we've been playing that game in 2020. So the surprise and shock of that moment is like unparalleled. Yet, to a viewer at home who hasn't played the game today that's watching that, their shock and surprise is the main character of the series in episode 2 of season 2, played by Pedro Pascal, one of the biggest Hollywood stars in the world at the moment, hasn't just been killed off screen. He has been like slowly, as Abby said, killed. I don't even know the word for it. I don't want to say graphics. That's like an understatement. It's one of the most brutal sequences in HBO. And I'm going to go back to Game of Thrones again, because Pedro Pascal's done brutal deaths in HBO himself, famously of the Mountain. And I saw the behind the scenes video, I think you did too, where they spoke about like they gave like an animatronic, like not mask, but it's makeup, but it's on an animatronic because they wanted to be. I mean, I'm sure it'll come out one day, but Pedro Pascal just walking around on set looking normally with a face like that, it would be terrifying. And how they built up to the sequence, I really enjoyed it. I know I mentioned Dina earlier, but having Ellie looking for the tracks and very competently not showing her trying to find him all the time. You just get one moment of her, which is then before she gets into the building. Dina trying to figure out who these people are. Joel seeing Jackson being attacked. So not only does he think, I'm about to die, he probably thinks Ellie and everyone else that he cares for is there attacked. And the lie from Abby to Dina that we've got guns, we've got this, we'll come and help you all. That's going to be a big thing. And it goes back to that swap mentioned at the start that Dina, I think, is going to become the co-lead of the series after today. If you look at the opening titles today, you get Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey come up together, which is granted correct. Then it's Isabella herself. It's not her with 3 other people. She has like her own, like the second fade in, fade out. And I do think she's going to have such a big moment in this. It's hard to talk about the scene because of how brutal it is. But I think, again, comparing games to series, you can't show someone being killed like that for like 20 minutes straight on TV. They essentially did it. Yeah, I mean, the shotgun through the leg was like insane. They did that off like a wide shot. And you just, the scream. Pedro Pascal's performance is remarkable in this. I haven't spoken about Caitlin Denver. The backstory, her performance, telling Joel what he did. I think, not like it's a game of chess, but, and we know that Joel doesn't regret what he did, but he knows there's consequences to actions. And it's the one thing he's feared is the story from 5 years ago. What did he do? The one thing he can't talk to Ellie about, and now it's come back to bite him in the worst possible way. And it's almost like he was resigned to know the day would come. The day would come where they find him. The day would come where they get him back. But for him to find out that it was, the daughter of the doctor who he didn't even look at. Going back to the description, he's meant to be handsome. He's this height. He's got this scar on his temple. I loved how they did it. I'm just curious of your thoughts on the build-up to the golf clubs. Like the whole intro scene, Caitlin Denver's performance, because again, she showed she can act, and if people are going to keep doubting her because she's not as physically as big as the game character, I understand frustrations with that. But again, that doesn't translate into TV. Like, not really, or no one's that built. There are people that built, and this goes back down to casting. You want to cast the best actors for the roles. I am complete acknowledgement that Caitlin Denver's probably out auditioned everyone. She was a name they'd spoke about for years ago to play Ellie, locking her in at the edge. I saw some more online saying they should have got Gina Carano or Ronda Rousey to play Ellie, not Ellie, Abby. And I was just sat there. I mean, not to get into politics, but even ignore the politics. You would want a 44-year-old or a 39-year-old to play a 24-year-old who's going to get flashbacks when she was 19. Like, yeah, this is the idiocy we deal with online that people think, and the key word they seem to forget, and it's like this for everything: films, books, comics, TV, everything, games. adaptation. I know I sometimes pronounce it weird. It is not a copy and paste. You know, why does everyone criticize those Disney live action remakes? Oh, they copy and paste. What else are they criticizing for? Oh, it's not a copy and paste. They changed a couple of things.
Yeah. I mean, I think Caitlin's done amazingly well. I think to even just take this role, which she will have been told had a massive backlash and about all the issues that went with the second game, I think you've got to be prepared for that. But I think her performance just adds, hopefully, just a bit more levity and grounds the character a little bit more. I think they really tried to do that with the game, but I think hopefully having, you know, her play the character and have some things be rewritten, it will just enable people to just, again, it's understand this character's motivations and why they've done this. You know, I got really annoyed with, you know, people commenting about the character's body type and stuff, and you know, people would say in the game that she must be trans because she's built, which is a whole load of issues with that statement, and I think pretty much offends everyone by saying that. You know, it wouldn't be an issue if Abby was trans. It wouldn't be an issue. It's not an issue for a woman to actually build up muscle tone and have muscles and just be properly built. Say properly built, just be really much more built. So to all those people annoyed at that, to then be commenting on Caitlin's body and she's not built enough. It's like, what do you want? It just seems like complaining for the sake of it and making some really disgusting misogynistic comments. So I'm hoping that the performance and the way that things are being shown in the show will help, you know, offset some of those things. But there's always going to be those people out there who make those awful comments. So I think what is great to see is so much positivity for Caitlin. A lot of people are still saying that they don't like Abby, which is absolutely fine. But people are saying, like, you know, it's the character, not the actress. And there's a lot more of that happening, which shouldn't need to be said. But I think with the current climate, it probably is useful to kind of have those. So, yeah, she's been fantastic. And I think the whole build-up, again, just the tension was just insane. I remember I was watching it. I was like, yeah, I know what's going to happen. This is still so awful. To know that Dina's there now was, you know, didn't help things. I mean, obviously it was bad when Tommy was there, but I'm glad that Dina didn't get pistol whipped like Tommy did, and that she was just kind of put to sleep. But again, seeing those support characters around her, you know, seeing how they feel about this, I think it's, I can't remember which. I think Mel is the one who kind of pipes up the most about not killing, and she looks away during Abby's attack on Joel, and you know, just seeing these different characters in this world, it's just really interesting and a really harrowing scene anyway. And to get the brutality of the shotgun, to get well, I think maybe it's too much of a monologue for my personal taste. I liked a bit more of kind of the unknown that we get from the game, but again, for a TV series, for the general audience, I think it makes sense for her to reveal things earlier here rather than what we get from the original source material. So yeah, very, very intense. I think it was good that we got Ellie and Jesse kind of having that initial kind of lighter moment, you know, finding the weed and all of that, to then, we've got to split up and try and find Joel and Dina. And then that whole build up to the final few moments, which are extremely harrowing.
Yeah. I mean, just going off the Abby things, where I want to talk about, this is really off point, but it makes sense because of wrestling. when the people would be like, oh, no one cut this. I don't know if you know who Brock Lesnar is. He's like ex-UFC, ex-WWE. You might have heard the name. He has a daughter who's about 13, 14. Now, she's a spitting image of him in the nicest way possible, that she is built like a monster. And she's like, I think she's like a shot put champion, world champion, going Olympics probably for whatever the next one is. That sort of territory of sport. And every time someone who used to be on this channel would make comments, and I'd be there like, it's physically impossible for anyone to ever look like Abby. It's not genetically possible. I'm like, you've seen Brock Lesnar's daughter. Try to say that to her. Built like a monster. Like, nothing wrong with that. People train. And also, let's be honest, I know that because it's someone's famous daughter. I don't watch the Olympics and track and field. I'm sure if you looked at many of the women's, is it stereotypical, say, shot put throwers, but they would be built like that. And the whole point of Abby is across those 5 years she has trained. Now, we don't know what they're going to show in the show, but maybe across these 5 years, maybe about training, it will be more about intelligence, about military, about her mission to try and get him. We know we're going to get, I'm delighted to see him. Jeffrey Wright's going to be appearing in the series, replaying his character from the game. I hope we get a lot more of the politics, because for the Fireflies to be such a big part of season 1 and then seeing season 2, episode 2, they're gone now. The audience probably want to know what happened in between, which I do think we're going to get. We might even get an episode like episode 7 of season 1, where we got the Ellie Riley episode. We might get something similar with Abby's backstory, which I think a lot of people would probably want to see, particularly the general audience. But again, with it being split across 2 series, it's so difficult to even not predict it, but to know what their plans and restructures are going to be. But as you said, we got to spend a bit more time with some of the other supporting characters. And, I'm still a spoiler. It is one of them where it really opens the door for the series and what's going to come. Even after the scene of Joel, as he's being killed, and Ellie says, "I'm going to, I'm going to kill every single person in this room." You believe it, and that's going to be a humongous part of The Last of Us, not just season 2, but season 3. All the taglines on the posters are all about revenge. My dad even said it. The final shot is them walking. Well, you've got Abby's lot walking out the snow, getting back to where they're from, and then obviously you've got the body of Joel and the others being taken to Jackson. Even my dad was sat there like, he was speechless, to be fair, but he's like, is Ellie's going to get her revenge then? It's black and white to casual viewers what's going to happen. So it's a weird one to talk about. I mean, I don't have much to say about the actual sequence. Like, they were never not going to do the golf clubs. It's too iconic. Like, it's too well known. It's still brutal. And even when they interweaved it to like Abby punching him a few times in the face, point blank range, and then obviously the final moment, the stabbing bit, there's just something so much more total about it being actors doing it on set compared to a video game, and that's going to offend some people somewhere. It's not me dissing video games. Just when it is actors, when it's sets, when it's hair and makeup, it always feels more real because it's not graphics on the screen. That's not discrediting cutscenes or anything like that. That's just a reality. They delivered that scene and even more. Joel getting the look at Ellie, the acknowledgement that he knows she is there. Bella's performance is for the moment in which the scream and the shout to sort of mute it in a way, because she's been kicked, the character. I forgot the name of the character that kicks her. He's part of the group though, isn't he? But he's like, he keeps trying to, because obviously she slashed him with
Manny.
Manny, that's it, because she's got him on the way in. And I even loved the build-up that we've all seen as audience members. Joel is basically dead at this point. But the innocence of showing her walking through the hotel, of Ellie looking around, seeing the room, hearing it coming from the floor above, it's brutal. And that's what that scene is. And there's got to be credit to everyone at HBO involved there. Not like, they didn't change anything. Like, they understood what they needed to show. They understand what is too much and what isn't enough. And I think they got it. It's a very fine line to get wrong. And I think they got it right on the episode. I don't know what you think of the actual death bit, but it's weird to talk about.
It is, but I think it's one of the most iconic moments from gaming history. And they replicate it as much as they need to. So things like Ellie entering the lodge and hearing it but not seeing it yet. It's the same when you're playing as her, and it's like, oh no, how far has this gone? And for us to go back into that scene and see that the golf club is broken and that Abby is just wailing on him and he's such a bloody mess. It's awful. And I think Ashley Johnson's performance in the game was so powerful. And I think Bella Ramsey does an equally wonderful performance as well. You know, the character of Ellie in both those formats goes from anger to just wanting to help to complete fear and, you know, just being extremely scared and with the knowledge that this is happening. You see kind of that fight continue through, but the expression, the sounds that she makes, it's awful because it goes from I'm gonna get you, you need to stop, whatever, to like, please don't. You know, it's so awful to know that, you know, this character who's gone on such a journey with this man who they've had a very weird up and down relationship, but it's at the end of the day they're surrogate father and daughter for each other, and for her to witness his end in such a terrible way, and, you know, having, you know, wanting to stop it so much, and to see the final blow from Abby with the stabbing, it's just it's just one of the worst things to see once anyway, and to see it in a game and then to see it in live action, especially with, you know, Bella Ramsey, who many of us will have seen from Game of Thrones onwards, you know, and we've seen Pedro from Game of Thrones onwards, or even from obviously before. But, you know, these are actors who have done wonderful jobs in crafting these characters, and to see one of them go out in this way, it's really powerful. I think everyone's I've harped on about the performances of people so far, but I think everyone's performances just made this scene hit, and I think I'm really glad we did get it as brutal as it probably could have been. It didn't need to go any further than it did. And to actually just have that additional moment of Ellie crawling to him and
the crane shot on top as well.
Yeah, just, you know, trying to be cradled or held by someone who's no longer there. It's awful. And I'm surprised that I didn't cry, because I think I did cry at the game when it first happened. But I think I was just so like, oh, like I had the energy taken out of me by watching it. Yeah, it was wonderfully awful. Which I don't know how else to describe it.
No, I'm with you. It's a very difficult one to talk about, and close to that. I mean, I had a taken down my eye. I wasn't crying, but it's like, because I know what's going to come, and it's more that baited, like, brace yourself because you know what's going to happen next. And obviously, it's not I don't want to turn around and look at my dad because different sofas in the house and stuff. But it's like, it would be that turn and look to see they're still paying attention. And I think comparatively, the biggest comparison I legitimately have, even though this is season 2, is Ned Stark in Game of Thrones. It's like the closest equivalent in TV. You've got this lead protagonist. Granted, Game of Thrones is so different. There could be two further apart, these two shows, but when you do that to the A-lister, the highest paid star, because the show's going to make stars of everybody else in it, which is what I think Last of Us is somewhat doing. Obviously, it's too early to ever know that. But like Game of Thrones, that whole cast went on to do massive things, but Sean Bean was the glue at the start of that show. And Pedro Pascal is that for Last of Us. You know, it's going to go for it 3 seasons. I don't think we're getting the 3rd game. And I think Craig Mazin's been very open in saying, I'm not doing additional stuff unless there's an actual game. We know Naughty Dog are doing an original project next, so I do think Last of Us is done. I say Last of Us is done. They're doing another version of it. The Last of Us Complete comes out just after season 2 finishes airing, which is outrageous as a title to re-release it again. But they do that. But yeah, I I don't have too much more to add on this. It's a really weird episode to talk about. It's like it kind of makes me really exciting for next week onwards, because as great as this episode is, we're now not going to be coming next week saying the Joel death's going to happen soon. When's Joel's death going to happen? When's it happening? What's happening? How are they going to do it? Now it's like, now we get to see the aftermath. Now we get to see how other characters respond. Now we know that Tommy wasn't there. This might be I don't want to like get into the jump of Emmys and stuff, but I need to see Tommy's facial reactions to the body. I need to see how the other characters sell this. I need to see the aftermath, what happened in Jackson. Are they all going to need to leave? Is the pipe damage too dangerous for them moving forward? Like, there are so many great questions. And by having this all in episode 3 is a really wonderful way to start a series. I don't know what your final thoughts are. I know that my final thoughts end up more being a hype merchant for next week, but I thought they're going to an unbelievable episode of TV.
Yeah, I mean, we get... I'm trying to remember what happens in the game in between, Joel being killed and then kind of the next, section of the game beginning. But it looks like we'll get a little bit more time with Jackson and these characters based on the preview. And I think it's a real kick in the gut to have Ashley Johnson's song playing at the end of the episode, to see Abby's group leaving, to see Jesse getting Ellie and Dina, who's still like drugged up, and the body behind. We already see Maria and Tommy and Jackson having a moment after the battle. Obviously, both, traumatized by what's just happened and feeling very emotional anyway. It's only going to be added to with the death of Joel. And yeah, I think it was really good for them, I think, to end that. And I think I read or heard it somewhere else that to actually see the body in a bag just solidifies that this character is gone. So yeah, it's just a really, really powerful episode. And I hope the next episode and the rest of the season kind of does it justice in kind of following up in the best way that they can do, and I have confidence that they will. But yeah, it's a massive thing, and I'm sure people will be talking about it a lot. And I do hope that wider audiences are able to engage with the show and continue with it. There's people I know who are just starting or have just started this year. So I really hope that people do continue with it.
Absolutely. Please do continue with it, and we'll be continuing with it. We are going to be obviously doing these spoiler discussions every week. I know you're on holiday next week, so you're going to miss a big one, but at least when you get back, you get to watch 2 episodes of Last of Us to catch up with.
It's very true.
Which will be a lot of fun. And as you said, I'm excited to see what happens in between and what is going to happen next. So that is going to do it for today's spoiler discussion. Everybody watching at home, please do comment your thoughts on The Last of Us. Whether you enjoyed this, whether you didn't, your thoughts on the second game, your thoughts on the series so far, things you're looking forward to, things you're not. Obviously, as you said, we know Series 3 is happening. Other videos, Christ Almighty, Andor returns this week. We've got new releases. As I said, Revenge of the Sith out of cinemas. We've just done WrestleMania weekend, which is very busy. It's why I'm very, very tired, and I'm probably actually going to fall asleep after this video. I'm not going to lie. We'll put stuff on our social medias when we're doing stuff. It's been a very busy few days. We're getting back into track. There's a lot of new releases happening too. Takes back from Austria very soon. Linktree description, push through to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and Blue Sky. We're on all of those platforms. So that's going to do it for me. Sam, thank you so much for watching. And not Sam, thank you for watching, for jumping on, and everybody watching at home. I'm going to fall asleep before I get anything more mixed up. See you on the next one. Take care.